Hey everyone, it's finally here, the next part of Chapter 13, and I'm so glad you're here to share it with me. If you're present for the premiere live right now, welcome. If you're watching with us later, you can check out the chat and follow along if you feel like enjoying the shenanigans vicariously. Either way, thank you for being here, I really hope you'll enjoy it. I've got a couple of special guests that I'm so glad to have joining me for this one. Pink and K9 lent their voices for a pretty big scene, and they both really did such a wonderful job of it. But consider that as just a warm-up, because if you know what happens at the end of this chapter, you'll see what they can really do. I'm so proud of what they put into their performances. It was a ton of fun directing and working together with them. A quick recap of the last part. Cyrus, Aaron, and Silver set out from the base to go on a road trip to Vermont to see Cyrus's old hometown. He hopes to be able to get some closure on what may be left of his house, a time capsule he'd mentioned to Silver, and his old life. During a training session with Silver, Cyrus discovers how to activate his time-slowing ability from Chapter 4, with some surprising success. And just in time, too, as we start to see Lance and Artemis make their way together to the headquarters of Resume. With that, let's get right into it. Here's Part 2 of Chapter 13 of Remember the Flowers. As usual, the meal Aaron made for us is absolutely amazing. The warm stew paired with the cool breeze from the forest makes a relaxing experience. Later in the evening, Silver and I start chatting about training ideas. By the way, Cyrus, what's with that axiom? I noticed it earlier. Doesn't it weigh your arm down? Kind of. It's not very heavy, but it does make it a bit awkward to swing the knife. Maybe we should get you a more compact model like the ones we use. Come to think of it, I've never seen that type before. Aaron's the one who gave it to me. Apparently it wasn't released to the public. That's right. Despite the fact that it's more advanced than most models, it has a lot of limitations. Mainly because it has to connect to the host through their nerves. I hold my arm out so Silver can get a better look at it. It has an AI in it that's been helping me figure out how to use it, but I'm still learning. I see. It's just so bulky. You could maybe use it as armor in a pinch, but that's stretching it. Maybe you're right. The only issue is that I wouldn't want to damage it. Well, you should be able to change its shape, at least a little bit. Huh? What do you mean? Aaron thinks for a moment. I've only seen one other person use it, but yours looks a lot different than when he had it. It's supposed to be able to change shape. Aaron tugs on his green bandana as he tries to remember. He used it while fighting a lot, but couldn't do much with it without hurting himself. He wasn't able to do anything too crazy with it, although I remember he was able to fire some sort of blast from it once. Aaron sighs. Nearly burned his arm off in the process. Can an axiom really do that? Now that you mention it, I remember how weird it was when you put it on me. It was a blank slate for a moment before it started to change. Even the screen ports look different than what I remember. I have to wonder if that AI adjusts the form based on the user. Let me try something. I calm my mind to use the mental link with my axiom. Kai? Yes, operator? I assume you've been listening in on our conversation. Are you able to change your shape at all? Certainly. What form would you like me to take? Offensive? Defensive? How about efficient? A little lighter would be helpful. One moment, please. Okay. And just like that, the axiom covers itself in a verdant green light. It doesn't last for a long time, maybe 10 seconds. I barely have time to register what happened before Kai speaks to me again. Reduced physical surface area by 45%. Any less would impede functionality. Is it to your liking? Stunned at what just happened, I'd start to rotate my arm around. I could feel it sucking out some of the metal underneath the skin when it changed shape. Instead of looking like a large metal band, the axiom now looks more like a brace attached to my arm. It only covers the top of my arm now, The underneath is replaced with 2 metal straps to keep it in place. It's still embedded in my skin, but it's not nearly as suffocating as before. My arm definitely feels a lot lighter. Wow. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? How did you get it to do that? I can kind of talk to it in my mind. It can hear my thoughts and can communicate without anyone knowing. That's crazy. I never knew something like that existed. Like I said, they didn't make many. I wonder what else I can make it change into. Just be careful. It's still inside of you after all. That's true. It felt a little weird, I'll admit. I could feel it sucking out some of the metal underneath the skin when it changed shape. Grody, all through telepathy, huh? Yeah, pretty much. That actually gives me an idea. Sorry to get off topic, Silver, but I had something I wanted to tell you while we were training. Oh, what's that? It's hard, but I try to explain to both of them about my weird ability. I leave out the part about me feeling dizzy and fatigued so Aaron doesn't worry. Interesting. That explains why your heart was acting up before. Yep. While you're gone, I'm going to try and practice with it, mainly on how to use it with my axiom. There's a lot of potential with an ability like that. I doubt many people can do it. You said your chest felt warm while you were in that state, right? And I hope that isn't your artificial heart overheating or worse. That caught my attention too. When we're back home, let's have Vita take a look at it. I hope it's not too confusing for them. I could definitely use some maintenance though. It's been a while. I could slice you open so we could take a peek at it. Thanks, but I don't trust you to put me back together. Fair enough. Aaron coughs. Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to ask you something, Cyrus. Yeah, what's up? I hope this isn't rude to ask. What's gotten you so fired up lately? Don't get me wrong, I'm happy that you're feeling passionate, but I guess I'm just surprised. I didn't peg you for a fighter. I don't really know how to explain it. I mean, I never really thought about fighting until recently. I think back at my times at university with Diana and Damien. I don't think I've told you, but I didn't really want to become a doctor when I got into grad school. My folks were the one who pushed me toward it. I hated blood and gore. Looking at the diagrams and pictures in the textbooks was more than enough to make me feel ill. Then, I'm stumped. I guess even now, I shouldn't expect to remember everything super clearly. It was centuries ago, after all. Sorry, I'm not sure where I was going with this. I think I just learned that I wanted to help people. I don't know. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't push yourself. Aaron places a comforting paw on my shoulder. Thanks, Aaron. I really don't know why I'm this amped up, though. You could just be fighting for your survival. We do it all the time. Maybe. Sometimes I wish I wasn't so forgetful. I stare down at my reflection mirrored against Kai's new appearance. My brow is furrowed. I want to fight, but what do I want to fight for? Obviously for my new friends, but I know there's something more to it than that. This is going to bug me for a while. I can feel it. It isn't until Silver claps his paws that I snap my attention back to the conversation at hand. You've got plenty of time to do some soul-searching, Cyrus. But speaking of time, I should probably get going. What? Already? Yeah, I just got a message about that potential new base we're investigating. It's looking like there's something to it. I guess it was only a matter of time before they started looking for opportunities all the way out here. What are you going to do? I'm going to be as annoying as I possibly can. Then I guess I have nothing to worry about. Just be careful, all right? If worse comes to worse, text me. We can try to come help. I appreciate it. But what kind of assassin calls for backup? The kind that has friends, that's what. Silver blinks before he smiles. Hope you find what you're looking for, Cyrus. Be sure to show me what's in that time capsule when we're back home. You got it. Do your best. I always do. Good luck out there, Silver. over, nods, and then gets up from the log, putting his hoodie back on. After a deep breath, he speeds off towards his bike. He must have been taking it easy on me earlier. That level of agility is insane. It isn't long until we hear the roar of his bike echo through the empty forest, only to slowly fade into the distance. It's just the two of us again, and I'm very aware about that. Did you get enough to eat, Cyrus? Absolutely. It was delicious, as always. No, you flatter me. Nothing like a good campfire meal. You said it. Here, let me clean up. You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. No buts. Guess I can't argue with you. No, there's not much to clean up. Aaron passes me the lid that goes over the pot he cooked the stew in. If you can just take it off the fire and then pack it up, that'd be great. You got it, boss. Aaron chuckles while I start cleaning everything up. Thankfully, it really isn't that much. I grab all of the bowls we used and then rinse them out with water the best I can. Are you nervous about tomorrow? It's been a while since you were last home, right? That's putting it lightly. I stack all of the dishes before putting them away in a nearby crate. The last time I saw my parents was before the fall was announced. At the time, Current kept me at the facility to make sure I stayed sanitary. I was supposed to fly home at some point to catch up with them. Obviously, that didn't happen. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought it up. Don't be. I want to talk about them. I'm trying to be as open as I can about everything that's happened, you know? In that case, why don't you tell me about them? Boy, where do I even begin? Why not a rousing game of 20 questions? I think I'll take you up on that. Aaron and I get comfortable around the dying campfire. For the next hour or so, he asks me about random facts of my previous life. He eventually takes his axiom out to start typing in it, saying he's been researching how the old world used to be. Aaron is quite attentive throughout my many ramblings. He's picking up on things I wouldn't consider abnormal, but are wildly different than how he grew up. Your parents sound wonderful, Cyrus. I can only imagine how hard it must have been to go through school like that. It wasn't the worst. I had a lot of help along the way. Definitely couldn't have done it without them. A proper support system is all you need. Aaron shuts off his axiom before he leans back. I hope your old way of life becomes more commonplace in the future. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. The world was still pretty shitty back in the day. Just a different shade of shitty. Things seemed a lot more simple back then. That's probably because I can't properly explain how complicated it all was. The government was pretty shitty most of the time, and healthcare was way too expensive. My folks weren't super well off for most of my life. We made do, but it was rough. Part of the reason I went to work for Current was to help my parents pay for my college expenses. That's very admirable of you, Cyrus. I'm sure they're proud of you. I'd like to think so. They did a good job raising me. I miss them a lot, to be honest. I can imagine. Aaron sits straight to face me. Well, it's not very fair of me to ask about your past without telling you about mine. What? Do you want to tell me about how you grew up? Sure. As you know, I have a lot of stories. I'm all ears. I've been curious about a few things, to be honest. Oh, yeah? Like what? I'm curious how you met everyone. You told me you met Lance and Reggie at the orphanage. What was it like growing up? Ah, the orphanage. Obviously, it wasn't an ideal situation to be in, but we made it work the best we could. Despite how strict the staff were, they tried to make sure we were well fed and comfortable. It was a poor establishment, however, so we didn't have many luxuries. Lance, Reggie, and I shared a small room together. I had a bit of a growth spurt when I was young. I remember having to sleep on the floor for a little while until they replaced my bed. Every now and then, I try to anonymously donate plumes to help out. I nod along as Aaron recollects his childhood, not wanting to interrupt. When Reggie turned 18, he got accepted for a scholarship and was able to travel to go to school. We only saw him a few times a year after that. Aaron's voice starts getting a little somber. It was just me and Lance in that little room for a while. I think I was about 14 at the time. We played and talked a lot, but it was still lonely. At the time, it wasn't very common for kids to get adopted. Those who did usually showed some sort of promise. Basically, if you weren't useful in some way, shape, or form, you didn't get to leave. Reggie actually got asked a few times, but said he'd only go if we were able to go with him. In the end, it never worked out. Then I turned 18. I was finally old enough to work. A nearby factory had a stranglehold on the orphanage. They exploited the small staff of the orphanage to get free laborers. I didn't want to cause a fuss, so I decided to go willingly. I remember how teary-eyed everyone was, especially Lance. Lance wasn't of age yet, but he wouldn't let me leave alone, and insisted he come with me. Aaron manages to chuckle while reminiscing. He was a needy guy, I'll tell you what. Always needed reassurance. Reggie graduated from intermediate level of education and was on his way to university, but after hearing about us leaving, he decided to drop it all and come back to us. Factory life, well, it didn't work out for me, to say the least. They didn't pay us much and would often delay paying us altogether. They kept pushing us to work. Oftentimes it led to more violent outcomes. I still remember the time they threw a wrench at Lance's face and the beating I gave the supervisor who did it. After a few months, I got the courage to get us all to run away. We ran away as fast and as far as we could. I was bitter, very bitter. My folks abandoned me. I couldn't find a job, and I barely knew anything. I had to take that anger out on something. Hey, what's wrong? Cyrus, I did a lot of awful things. Things I'm ashamed to admit. I was angry at the world around me, and hurt a lot of people. At first, I made it a point to not attack anyone for no reason, so we only targeted rival gangs. That code of honor didn't last long, though. We'd raid any camps we came across in the desert. There was a lot of bloodshed. Even now, I can clearly hear the sound of a bat smacking against a sleeping man's skull. It was efficient and easy. It felt good to get all of my anger out on somebody, anybody. We worked as a team for a while, but I knew deep down I just wanted to raise hell. Eventually, our small band of 3 grew bigger and bigger. We'd take in people over time that suited our interest, eventually becoming a respectable desert gang. That's actually how we ended up meeting Karen. We ran into her during one of our raids. Apparently, we had our eyes set on the same target. It turned into a competition, more or less, to see who could do the most damage. After everything went down, everyone was pretty much spent for the night. In the end, there was no clear winner. But she stuck around after that, and we eventually merged our gangs together. I can't deny that it was an exhilarating time in my life. Aaron sighs louder than I've ever heard. I won't make excuses for myself. I won't even try to sugarcoat it, saying we did what we had to do. We were a band of thieves who did what we wanted, when we wanted. I'm ashamed to admit it, but that's what we were. Sorry, I prattled on for a while, didn't I? It was eating at me. I wanted you to know who I really am. He's shaking again, just like when we were with Vita when I got my memories back. It takes me a moment to say anything. It is a lot of information to take in all at once. I don't want to disregard everything he's told me, though. So, what changed? What do you mean? You've been the nicest person I've met since I got out of Curran. Something must have happened for you to end up like this. Life dealt you a bad hand. I think you have the right to be angry about it. Granted, some things you told me were not good. I put a reassuring hand on his shoulder. He flinches. Do you feel bad about what you've done? More than you could know. I wish I could just forget it all, but that'd be cowardly. Yes, it would be. But you know what isn't? Admitting that what you were doing was wrong, and growing to be a better person. I mean, for fuck's sake, you were scraping by after the apocalypse, Aaron. That's not something a lot of people could handle. You say that, but I can still remember it all clear as day. I can't sleep some nights. I just think about it. Have you been keeping this to yourself all this time? Yeah, for the most part. But that's only because everyone else knew where I came from. I was worried the most about you finding out. I couldn't live with myself if you started seeing me as some kind of monster. Why would I think that? Because you did bad things, Aaron. You fucked up. But you're trying to atone for that, right? Yes, I am. But I don't think it'll ever be enough. It might not be, but you're trying. That's better than some people I know who've done a lot less. He starts to tremble, and I take that as my cue to give him the best side hug I can. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, Aaron. I hope you know how happy you've made me. I can't see his face, but I can hear him whimper as he tries to return my hug. We sit quietly for a while. Eventually, the fire goes out, almost leaving us in the dark. The moon is bright tonight, which gives us enough light to look around. I can see Aaron wipe his face with his bandana after we separate. Man, I thought I couldn't get more pathetic. Don't say that. You're not pathetic at all. You say that, but sometimes I'm not so sure. When push comes to shove, I'll be there to pick you back up. Cyrus, you remind me a lot of Xavier in a way. That catches me off guard. What do you mean? You asked me earlier that something had to have changed, right? I nod, letting Aaron know I'm going to keep listening. It was a few years after we left the orphanage. We were a bit notorious, I'll tell you what. Sometimes we got a little too brave for our own good. Part of that was leading raids into more developed cities. There's a town to the east of Tensia called Stein. It wasn't as advanced as Tensia, but it was pretty close. We decided to raise hell in a place that had never seen it before, for no reason other than to prove a point. During our first raid, however, something happened that changed our lives forever.
Hey, you! Can you hear me? Please, help me!
Huh? I grunted in the direction of the soft voice. A small white-haired human jogged up to me. He's gasping for breath. They were absolutely filthy, with completely tattered clothes. He must have been desperate if he came to me for help. You shouldn't be here. Don't you know there's a raid going on?
That's how I was able to escape. Can you help me out of here? After that, I won't bother you ever again.
When they lifted their head up to look at me, I thought they were winking at me. One of their eyes was closed.
Please, I don't have any money or valuables, but I can pay you back in time. I promise.
The more I looked him over, the more I realized just how beat up he was.
Hey, Aaron! What the hell are you doing? We've got shit to beat in!
My second in command yelled for me from the other side of the street, pipe in hand.
Wait, did you all start this? You have to get out of here.
And why is that?
Because Resume is stationed here.
What? I looked around at the damage we'd done, and just how much shit we were in. A small human grabbed my paw and then tried to direct me away.
If you don't get out of here, they're gonna kill you. Please.
I'm 6'8" tall. This human couldn't be any taller than 5 feet 10 inches. He was scared of the situation at hand, but fearless of me. I had never been more confused in my life. Sirens wailed in the distance. The human tried pulling me even harder. Damn it. Karen, round everyone up. We're getting out of here. We were back at our desert camp for the night, a good few miles south from Stein. We could still see a cloud of smoke coming over the horizon, but I was pretty sure we ran far enough away that they wouldn't be able to find us. I tried to do a head count. I was disappointed when I came up short. 5 of us didn't make it out. Their deaths were on my selfish hands.
So, do you mind telling me who you are? Where you came from?
I've never seen a human with white hair before. They were both treating the person we wound up taking care of. We didn't have a lot of medical supplies, but thankfully most of his wounds seemed to be old. After he took a swig of water, he finally answered.
Yes, of course. Thank you for taking me in, by the way. My name's Xavier. Xavier Soul. I was a resident in Resume. I, actually just escaped a couple days ago.
Escaped? From a hospital?
How much time do you all have?
Reggie and Lance looked at each other before looking toward me. I grunted before I got up and sat next to them. Just how much shit have we gotten into?
You don't know the half of it.
The human explained all of his experiences over the past 100 or so years. I didn't believe him at first. Given his appearance, however, I eventually gave in. Reggie held his chin and thought.
So, the saviors of the land are actually just a public black market.
Reggie sighed before he shook his head.
Glad I didn't end up working for them after all.
You believe me?
It's hard not to, particularly with your eye.
Xavier held his hand over his closed eye.
You would have to be pretty committed to pretend to having had your eye harvested.
My blood started to boil. Yet another aspect of the world who takes advantage of the vulnerable.
I appreciate you looking at it. I haven't been able to clean it since I left.
I didn't do much. Honestly, we should get you to a professional if we can.
Reggie turned toward me.
What do you think? We can't take care of him with what we have currently. We can barely get by as it is.
You don't have to tell me that. I'm well aware.
Oh, you don't have to take care of me. I'll be fine.
Xavier got up and then patted his dusty clothes.
I'm glad you took me in this direction. I have a contact I've been meaning to meet.
He set his sights on the desert wastelands to the east.
I just hope they're still waiting for me. With all the commotion, I wouldn't be surprised if they left.
Xavier turned back to me and then gave me a small smile.
Thank you for rescuing me back there. I'll be forever in your debt.
We didn't do anything. Don't get it twisted.
If you say so.
When they started walking off, I immediately got up and grabbed his hand. Where the fuck are you going?
Hey, don't scare me like that.
Xavier tried to free their puny hand from my grasp, so I let them go. You're not seriously going off into the desert by yourself, are you?
I mean, yeah. I don't want to cause y'all any more trouble than I already have. I just know Resume will catch up soon. You don't want me around.
I pinched the bridge of my snout. No. You're not going to just wander around aimlessly in the desert. You're going to freeze to death before you find anyone.
I'm pretty tough, I'll have you know. Don't worry.
Don't be stupid. I sighed loudly as I rubbed my eyes. Just stay with us for the night. We can try to find the people you're looking for tomorrow.
You really don't have to.
Do not make me repeat myself. Understand? I could tell that struck fear in the human, as intended. But I couldn't help feeling a little bad about it. Who are you even looking for? The human looked at the three of us before he looked at the rest of the camp.
What I'm about to tell you is extremely confidential. Understand?
And the info about Resume wasn't.
Yeah, but fuck Resume.
Xavier sat back down with Reggie, Lance, and me.
You see, I'm trying to meet up with a resistance group.
Xavier explained the gravity of the situation at hand to us, along with who broke him out of Resume. He told us that for the past 2 years, he's been secretly in contact with a spy who had managed to climb his way up to try to break him out. There was a mishap right at the end, however. The spy got himself killed while Xavier tried to get away. He couldn't make it out of the city without getting caught, so he's been in hiding, waiting for an opportunity to escape. We just happened to be at the right place at the right time. The human started to unravel a bit now that he's had a chance to breathe.
If my body let me move right, Grant would still be alive. I'm so damn slow now.
He shook his head.
My life wasn't worth his.
Don't diminish his sacrifice by making yourself feel bad. You're disrespecting him.
You say that, but
I'm sure he just wanted to help you. I mean, he wouldn't have gone through all that if he didn't, right?
I know, but
Xavier's gaze turned toward me. Their one eye widened in surprise.
oh shit, were you shot?
He said in a panic, which confused me. What are you going on about? They pointed to my calf. Sure enough, there was a tear in my pants and some blood. Oh, something must have grazed me on the way out. Didn't even notice.
Mr. Reginald, do you have any rubbing alcohol?
You don't have to be so formal. What's gotten you so worked up?
It could get infected.
Hey, come on. Aaron's the toughest guy I know. Right, Aaron? My boyfriend looked up at me earnestly. It made me smile bashfully. Shut up, Lance. He's right. I'll be fine. Without being prompted, Xavier tried tearing what little was left of his clothes to make makeshift bandages. Xavier was the kind of guy to put others over himself, even when he was in a bad state. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's the reason I started to believe in hope again. Hope that there's at least some good out there, and that it's worth trying to find it. He opens his eyes and looks at me with compassion. It's thanks to him that I was able to meet you, after all. He got us to meet the resistance, and we eventually got employed by them. It was a good time, all in all. Aaron's expression turned sour. Well, I thought it was. Guess others thought differently. Aaron takes a deep breath after talking for so long. I hope that learning more about me doesn't scare you, or anything. Aaron, you don't have to worry about that. You're like my best friend. The fact that you felt comfortable enough to tell me everything means a lot to me. It was mainly out of fear, if anything. And that in and of itself takes courage. Trust me, you're fine. Thank you, Cyrus. Don't mention it. Need a hug? I wouldn't turn one down. Come here, big guy. To reassure him, I stand up so I can give him as big of a hug as I can manage. Like before, he's shaking as we embrace. Now more than ever, I want to tell him that there's a possibility that Xavier is alive and well. But I just can't. I need more information before I let him know. Maybe Silver can do something about that one day. Aaron eventually breaks the hug and starts to rub his eyes. Phew. I don't know what got over me. Man, it got late. Sure did. I'm about ready for bed. What about you? Here, here. Without hesitating, he takes a pill bottle out of his axiom. He pops a couple into his mouth before swallowing. Feel free to wake me up in the morning if I oversleep, but I'll try to set an alarm for us. It sounds good to me. I'm excited to sleep in a tent. I haven't gone camping in a long time. Then let's stop procrastinating and get to bed. Since the moon is the only source of light we have, Aaron tries to lead me to the tents. He gently takes my hand to guide me over everything. I wish I had good night vision. Once I make it inside, he zips my tent closed. Then he heads to his, which is right next to mine. Good night, Cyrus. And thank you for listening. Thank you for telling me, Aaron. Good night, you big softy. Good night, Cyrus. Even from a tent over, I can definitely hear him purring. Listening to that easily puts me to sleep. When we eventually roll into town, I'm met with an existential dread I've never felt before. Almost everything is in ruin, vegetation taking over the sidewalks and roads. I can still picture scenes of this town in its heyday, with bustling streets and community. Now, at this point, most of the buildings are showing their age, with many falling into disrepair. It's a small miracle that there are still any buildings left standing. There aren't any windows left in the buildings, and the ones that are still there are absolutely covered in faded graffiti. I guess mass looting makes sense. I stand over a group of makeshift graves. It takes me some time to process it all. There aren't any names or gravestones. I have no idea who these people are. No one has for centuries. At the very least, I can pay my respects, if only to make myself feel just a little bit better. Everything is just about how I would have expected it, or rather how I should have expected. It's been 300 years after all. Still, it does make me a little sad to see the town I grew up in falling apart like this. When I glance at Aaron, he looks worried. This was my idea to begin with. I don't want Aaron to think it was a bad one. With no more hesitation, I take my helmet off before getting out of the sidecar. I take in a deep breath of crisp, what used to be Vermont air. I'm happy to see that the pine trees are still alive and well. It makes this feel just a little bit like home. Despite how barren everything is, I'm still feeling nostalgic. How are you feeling? It's been so long since I was last here. I wouldn't be surprised if I forgot how to get to my house. Well, we've got a lot of time on our hands to find it. We sure do. I think I've got a better idea. Want to take a trip with me down memory lane? Of course, Cyrus. Lead the way. I try shaking my uneasiness off. Who knows, maybe it'll be fun giving a good friend a tour of the place. And that's it for now. We'll leave our boys there in the streets of Cyrus's hometown. Even with my shorter video lengths, this leaves us quite a lot for the third part. I won't spoil anything, of course, but be prepared for some heavy stuff. I think we always knew it was coming, but finally getting to see this side of Aaron before he cared about coming off as too scary does so much to build out his character in the world. And getting a glimpse of his relationship with Lance and hearing him talk about it adds just a ton of depth to the complicated history between them. It was almost kind of bizarre getting to see a less cynical and grumpy version of the wolf before he got kicked out of the group. Lance, happy? Who knew such a thing was possible? It really makes me wonder how the inevitable reunion is going to play out. And I gotta say, K9 did such an amazing job of Xavier, really capturing his simultaneous fragility and optimistic strength. Also keep in mind what Pink did here for the oh-so-smooth Reggie when the next part goes up. He's got a brilliant range that's just super impressive. If you liked what they did, you can find both of them on Twitter. Be sure to show them some love. I've put their handles on screen and linked in the description below, and there's a very good chance we'll be doing more together in the future too, so keep an eye out for that. I know I say it every time, but I really do appreciate everyone's support. I've got a lot of big stuff planned coming up, and I know I always say that too, but February is going to be a pretty busy month for me in my personal schedule, So as a heads up, it may be a while between videos since it'll be extra tough for me to put things out over the next few weeks. The next two for sure will be the second half of Unveiling, as well as the conclusion of Chapter 13 for Remember the Flowers, which will also be going up as a premiere, but on a weekend this time. It's always a ton of fun to share these live with you all. And just as a reminder, I do take suggestions, and I'll definitely have a lot of time to do some extra reading this month. So if there are other furry visual novels you'd like to hear me voice and narrate, let me know. I haven't done a first impression in a while, so if you've got something you'd like for me to check out and possibly feature, I'd love to hear it. Thanks as always for stopping by. I'll see you all next time.